The Gemara said yesterday we ended Amar, I think Amar Rabbi Bachana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan on the first side. There was Shnei Zikanim Hoye B'Sidon. There were two elders in the town of Sidon, and Echad Osuk Beis Shammai. One of the rabbis followed Beis Shammai's ruling. Is they opened up with 8 candles the first night, and 7 candles the second night, and they went down in order. And one, Ve'echad Asa Kedir Beis Hillel, and one followed the ruling of Beis Hillel, and then Notein Tam L'Dvarav Keneged Porei Echad. Now the Gemara had indicated different reasons for Beis Shammai's opinion and different reasons for Beis Hillel's opinions. And here we had 2 great elderly rabbis. Each one held like Beis Shammai, one held Beis Hillel. One lit 1, and then every night moved up 1. Added 1, and one it lit 8, and every night went down 1. And Zen notin tam ledvarav keneged porei echad. One of them, the one who did 8 and 7, said the reason why you go down is we find the precedence in the Torah that you go down. That sometimes you do go down, you go lower. Meaning to say, there is this concept called Ma'alim B'Kodesh. There is this concept that you go up. You don't go down. In holiness, you should always go up. You should always move up. You shouldn't move down. So then the question is, and Rashi brings that concept of moving up and moving down is a pasuk. There's a pasuk in the Torah that we learn that this concept, that Ma'alim B'Kodesh. Good morning, Simon. Good morning, Asaf. So now the question is, how if there's a pasuk in the Torah that says you have to move up, Ma'alim B'Kodesh, you have to go up in holiness, and we said that's, by the way, the reason why, perhaps one of the reasons why we go from the talit to the tefillin, because we're moving up, we're going from a lower level to a higher level. So how is it that we go ahead and we go down? How could you go from 8 to 7 to 6 when you're supposed to be Ma'alim B'Kodesh? You're supposed to go up, and there's a pasuk that you go up B'Kodesh. We welcome Nathan back. So just to bring Nathan and Simon up to what we're up to here in the Gemara, we said yesterday that we brought the argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, the Mahadrin min Mahadrin. By Hanukkah, we find the phenomenon. There's the people that there's the basic law that every night you do 1 candle. Then there's a second level Mahadrin that you go ahead and every night you do according to how many members are in the house, how many people are in the house, whatever amount of people in the house, that's how many candles you light that particular night. And the third level is every night you add a candle. The Mahadrin min Mahadrin. That opinion of every night you add a candle, that's our law, but that's Beis Hillel's opinion. Beis Shammai said you go down. And the Gemara says there's different reasons that are given for Beis Shammai's opinion. There's 2 different approaches for Beis Shammai, and there's 2 different approaches in Beis Hillel. In Beis Shammai, one approach is because you want to go, you want to talk about how many days of Hanukkah are here. So if you have the first night of Hanukkah, you're focusing on. It's an 8-day holiday. I have 8 days of Hanukkah, and then every day you focus on the day that's coming. The 7 days left, the 6. That's not a reason that's given, at least in the Gemara. I can't say that no one says that reason. Do you focus on how many days are here, are coming? Or do you focus on how many days have come? So Beis Hillel, according to one approach, says you have to focus on how many days on today. Today's the first day of Hanukkah. The days that have already come. Keneged yamim hayotzim today. Right, so how many days have come already? Today's the first day. Tomorrow is already the second day, and Beis Shammai says it's how many days are coming, how many days are to the holiday. So as Rashi says, Keneged hanichnasim. Rashi says, how many days are coming? You have 8 days coming, 7 days coming, 6 days. Or do you focus on how many already came. First day have come, the second day has come. That's one approach in the argument. And the second approach we found is whether Beit Hillel holds you have to go up in holiness, and Beit Shammai says you go down because we have a precedent, meaning to say that even though there's a concept that you go over, you're supposed to go up in holiness, but we find in the Torah there are exceptions to that rule. And under certain circumstances, you go down if there's a special reason why you should go down. And that's perhaps that's the reason of Beit Shammai. Where did we ever find you do less? By the parim, the bulls that are brought on Sukkot. Sukkot, let's say you start with 13, I think. Let's look at the Sukkim, 13 bulls, and you go to 12 and 11. Every day, from day one from the time you started, you go 13 to 7. You're going down on every day. You're bringing one less bull than the day before. And so we find that precedent that you sometimes you do less, and there's a purpose. We said perhaps, what's the reason why you go down every day a bull? So there is an approach that the diminishing of the bulls every day is symbolic of the nations of the world that are enemies of the Jews. Because how many bulls are we going to bring by the time 70? By the time Sukkot is over, there's 70 bulls. The 70 bulls represent the 70 nations. There are 70 nations, and then there's us. We're not part of the 70 nations, right? We are. There's a lot of wolves out there. We are the little sheep, right, in the pack. We're not in the pack. We're the little sheep that they're trying to kill. And the 70 bulls, the diminishing of every day, one less bull is symbolic. The enemies of the Jews should be diminished, should go down. So therefore, we find there's a purpose that it should go less in order for this message that the enemy should go down. That's one approach of the 70 bulls. So too, the Hanukkah, every 8 going, what you were talking about diminishing, every day going from 8 to 7 to 6 is symbolic of the enemies of the Jews that were diminished through the miracle of Hanukkah. So now the Gemara says we found 2 elderly rabbis, and one rabbi followed the approach of Beit Shammai, and one approach of Beit Hillel, and the reasons they gave were based on the latter reasons. The one says Malin Bekodesh, you got to go up in holiness, therefore we got to go 1, 2, 3. The other one says because Keneged Pariachag, Keneged the bulls of Sukkot, and just like over there, according to this approach that we're saying, just like over there, they went down, so too over here we also go down. Now comes the next point in the Gemara. Tana Rabbanan, Ner Chanukah mitzvah lanicho al petach beito min b'chutz. There's a mitzvah of Ner Chanukah. There's the idea of something called publicizing the miracle. You're supposed to place it on the petach beito b'chutz. That means the outside of your door, outside of your house, outside. And outside your house, you should have the mezuzah on the right, the menorah coming into the house, the mezuzah on the right, the menorah on the left, and surrounded by mitzvot, and that would be outside your door, so the people will be able to, all the people when they enter the courtyard, they'll see your Hanukkah menorah. It's right displayed right outside your house. As you know, the house is opened up into the courtyard opened into the public property. That's how Rashi learns. Tosfos learns this law that you place the menorah outside your house, outside the doorway of your house, is talking when there's no courtyard, in front of the house. Just your house is open up into, like right over here. The house opens up, the building opens right into the street, into public property. But if the building, Tosfos says, but if there would be a courtyard in front of the house, then you would put it on the entranceway of the courtyard, close to the public. In all that it should be entry of the courtyard is right by the public property, right by the public domain. So the people in the public domain will be able to see the menorah.
Maybe.
So Rashi seems to be saying it's more about the people in the, at least Rashi's approach would be the people in the courtyard. You're putting it outside. You say hello to Ralph's granddaughter. You put it right outside.
Hello.
Hello, young lady. You put it right outside your house, or the Rashi calls of the people of the
And say
courtyard.
hello.
Will go ahead and good morning. The people in the courtyard will go ahead and see the menorah. So you have a lot of nachat. So and then the Gemara says, if a person is living in the aliyah, living in the attic, so over there you go ahead and you place the way outside. You don't have a you're not down. You're not downstairs. You put it right outside your door. You're upstairs. You're living upstairs. Good morning, Adam. So what do? You place it in your window close to the public property. Therefore, the public will be seeing will be putting up, it will be connected to your house, they'll see your menorah will be visually seen. You put it in the window that's close to the public property. Okay, so therefore, people will be able to see. We are on 21b3. But now, what about B'shata Sakana? But there was time, in a time of danger. Now, what's the time of danger? The Persians, who we're dealing with today, they had a law that in the day of their holiday, no lights are allowed to be lit, only in their place of idol worship. That's the only place. And if a person would light anything but in the place of their idol worship, they would be in danger of their life. And therefore, if it's a time of sakana, what do you do with the menorah? Because if you're going to put it outside, you're not supposed to endanger your life for this. So what do? You put it in your house. Manicha al shulchano v'dayo. You put it on the table in your house, and that's and that would be sufficient, because then the pursuing Nisa, the publicizing of the miracle will be for you in the house. It's on your table. You come into the house, you'll see it. You're walking around the house, moving around the house. That would be where you would put the menorah. So even though here in America, even though it might not be danger to keep your alive, but it might be dangerous to put your menorah outside. But we still keep this. We're still putting it inside the house. But what we're doing is at least we do the idea of the chalon. We go ahead and we put it by the window, so there'll be persumei nisa, there'll be publicizing of the miracle to the people that are passing by. Now the Beit Yosef says the following idea. Tosfos says that, the Beit Yosef says, according to Tosfot, that you would go ahead and you didn't light the menorah on the entranceway of your house when you had a courtyard. You'll actually light it in the entranceway going into the courtyard, going close to the public property. So why can't the guy on the upper floor light at the entranceway of the courtyard? That's the question that was proposed by the Beit Yosef.
Maybe the question is why can't you light down? But if you light up, you get more piercing on this. So it has nothing to do with what he can't do. He can do something better.
Right. Yeah, but it seems that the issue of the Gemara was, you're saying that maybe now he has something more to do. But the question is, if you could put it outside, you could accomplish that also by putting it outside, that people could see it. You could. Why would you?
And one guy who has the downstairs apartment
who's already showing. He's already showing the miracle. But if you have the entrance of the courtyard, there'll be many many more people, you're closer to the public property, so maybe it'll be more of a, so why if the guy is upstairs in the attic, why shouldn't he just go down, put it by the entranceway of the courtyard? That's a question that was 12 houses in the court. Yes, according according to Tosfos, that it's all by the entranceway of the courtyard. Everybody would have to put their menorah out by the entranceway of the courtyard. So, so the Beit Yosef answers, he doesn't have an entranceway to the courtyard. He's entering and going down through the bottom house, and it's not recognizable to the people that the lighting on the entranceway of the courtyard was made by the guy who's on the upstairs. People might maybe people people might not know that he did it. So now the question is, what about you know there are people. So what he's saying that he doesn't have a he's going through the bottom house, and if he goes through the bottom house, so then now why would maybe people with but if they see an extra menorah, so then they're not gonna realize that it's not recognizable to the people. Maybe he has both apartments, and therefore it's not recognizable to the people that they and even if you light that extra menorah over there, they're not going to connect it then necessarily with this guy upstairs, and therefore they got to go ahead and he has to light in his window. Okay, so the guy in the attic lights in his window. Now Tosfos points out that and now even though they said there was a danger, we said that during the Persians said on the day of their holiday, you can't light any lights anywhere in Iran. You can't light any or any places where they had hold in any parts of Israel or wherever they were. So if you can't go ahead and light the menorah, if there's light anywhere, so how can you have the light in your house, inside your house? Because why shouldn't that be a danger? The Tosfos says they didn't check the houses. If it was inside your house, it's not something they would notice so much, and therefore, but if it's right outside your house, it's much more noticeable to people passing by, and therefore they would go ahead and they see you. What is going on? You're lighting something out, which would be recognizable. But in the privacy of your home, they weren't really checking what you were doing in the privacy of your home, and therefore, therefore you put it on your table. So when it's on your table, it's not by your window. So therefore, then you hear that, Simon? It's by your table, not by your window. The time of danger, they're not going to notice that. They're not checking for that. So therefore, you would be good. Now, Amar Rava. Rava says, Sarach neracheres l'shtamesh la'ora. Rava says that you need another candle. Now, meaning you can't use the menorah for personal use, right? So this is the source of the shamash. We have the extra candle, right? There's an extra shamash, as Nathan says, and where is the source that you have to have a shamash? Meaning we on the 8th night of Hanukkah we're lighting 9 candles, 8 for the menorah and 1 for the shamash. The first night of Hanukkah we're lighting 2. One is the shamash and one is the mitzvah of Hanukkah. We need an extra candle. And by the way, we try not to keep that extra candle on the same line, try to make it a little higher, not in the same spot as the other candles. So it should be clear that this is the shamash and this is the other candles, especially the way we want to know which day of Hanukkah is. Sometimes they make menorahs in such a way that the shamash is right next to the other candles in the same line and not distinguishably different. And you can't tell which night of Hanukkah you're on. But you look at the candles, you see the shamash, you see that. So you need an extra candle. Now, what is the reason why you need this extra candle? Is the extra candle. So a lot of times you think about the extra candle as serving the purpose that in case you use light of the menorah, which you're not allowed to use, you're using the light of the extra shamash, the extra candle. And therefore you could say you're not benefiting from the menorah, you're benefiting from that extra shamash. But it seems there's a different thing going on. That seems as Rashi seems to explain that's not the reason why you need an extra candle. Rashi seems, what do you say?
When you have an oil
Menorah, correct.
and you have the 8 and the one is elevated.
That's
and
good.
Separate, how do you use that shamash with the oil in it to light up the other candle?
Right. So what you do, one way you do is that you
You
let's
have
say
another extra candle
let's
inside.
yeah, let's say you take a candle, let's say you light the shamash, let's say you lit the shamash first. Let's say you at the end, after you could do it different ways you could do it. After you take a candle, you make the bracha, you light the 8 or you light the 1, and then you light the shamash. So now
Then the shamash is not serving the purpose of originally
of the
saying
other
that you're lighting up the other
right.
candle.
So there you're not using the shamash to light the candles, but you're using the shamash as if you ever need light, the light that you'll be using will be from the shamash. Meaning, if you happen to read something or be in the room, and that's the only light on in the room, but for whatever reason, that's the menorah. Let's say it's Friday night or whatever it is, there's no other light on. But if you're benefiting, at least the benefit, the light of the shamash is what you're gonna. We could say you.
So in that case, light up.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. According to that, you could light up. You don't really according to that. Right, you could technically have 3 shamashim, and that's what the Gemara is going to say, Simon. If you have a mendura, if you have a torch, you don't need it. You don't need a shamash because you have those lights. But there's another. Rashi says there's an other reason for the shamash, that you want to show that you use that whatever you did light is for the purpose of Hanukkah, and it's for mitzvah. Not if I don't have a shamash and I use and then I might come and then it looks like you see a menorah, you see some lights, and menorah does technically you have to light a light. So if you see a light in the window, right? Maybe the purpose of that light is because you're using that light for the purpose of vision, of personal use. How is it recognizable that this light is not for the purpose that it's not for the purpose of personal use when I have an extra light that I'm using for personal use, and that light is not being used in the morning for personal use, then it's recognizable that this is for mitzvah. If I put a light in the window and people, it's not clear that it's for mitzvah. Maybe the light is for the purpose of what? Personal use. So how do I make it? How does it make it recognizable that this is a mitzvah? What I lit is a mitzvah when I have something else which is not for mitzvah, something else that I'm using. So let's see what it says. It says, "Sarich ner acheret l'shtamesh l'ora." If there is a you need another light next to the Hanukkah in order to use the light of that menorah, because if you do anything in the room, it's the fact that you have if you have one candle, you have a candle, and I have an extra. If I light an extra candle, why am I lighting an extra candle? Why isn't just lighting the one candle enough? So it should be clear that this other light is a light from menorah. But or else, let's go with the opinion that says you need one candle every night, right? The basic law of menorah is one candle every night.
And you
So
started
if I
from
have-
right to left?
we many
Right to
many
left.
do left, we do left, many do left to right, but we have to see the different customs. But Well, we have to look into that, but many do left to right. But we have to see what the Sfardim, what the customs by the Sfardim are. But the Ashkenazim, they go left to right. Now, if you would light one candle every night, where is it recognizable that you're doing it for mitzvah? Maybe that candle is for personal use. But if you have an extra candle, so why do you have an extra candle? The answer is you have an extra candle because it's clear that the first candle was lit for mitzvah. And since the first candle was lit for mitzvah, good morning, David. The first candle was lit for mitzvah, so the second candle is obviously for the purpose of the first candle, the second candle is for use, and the first candle is for mitzvah. Now, let's continue in the Gemara. Here's Simon's point. Medura. If there is a torch in the room, which really, in a certain sense, today's day and age, when we have light in the room, when the lights are on, according to this Gemara, it should not really need the shamash, because it's okay, because of the time when maybe the lights go out. But technically, if you have, David, a light on, so it's clear that the menorah light is for the purpose of mitzvah, because if the purpose of the menorah is for light purposes, you don't need the light of the menorah. You have the lights are on. When it's Friday night, Solomon, and maybe the lights went out. Let's say the guy's lights went out. So how do you know you're not using the menorah? How is it recognizable that the menorah is for mitzvah? Maybe you have the menorah lit, David, because you want to have light. You need using it for light. But if you have an extra light that you don't need, so why do you have two lights? If you have one light, one candle will serve the purpose. If the purpose is for lighting purposes, one candle will be enough. The fact that you have an extra candle shows you that candle that you're lighting is for mitzvah. That's why I have this extra candle here now, because I'm not allowed to. I have to show there's this concept. It should be recognizable that the menorah, that light that you lit, was for the purpose of mitzvah. And that way you'll be able to know that is by the fact that you have an extra light. Okay, so that's it. But if you have the menorah, if you have a torch, you already have an extra light. So what are you lighting this? Why are you lighting this light, this other light? The answer is because this is for mitzvah. Adam, is that clear or not clear?
Okay.
Can you explain the mechanics?
Right. It should be recognizable without the extra light in it.
But that's to say, does that mean you shouldn't use lights other than, our
No.
And again, if you're saying, I think what you're saying is our typical menorah should not need a shamash.
I'm not necessarily saying that because the shamash is part of the tradition, but what I'm saying is, it seems like it wouldn't be a good idea to just light candles like they may have done back then. Now everyone's used to the menorah that looks like that. Let's say.
Everyone uses a menorah that looks like that, right?
Yeah.
So now the question is, could you light a candle just like if you want to light one candle, put it in your window.
Like we do on Shabbat.
Like I said,
Maybe we don't have a.
Look at their tea light. Let's say a guy wants to take a tea light.
Yeah.
And you want to use a tea light for your Hanukkah menorah, right? You could use tea lights as let's say a guy doesn't have a real traditional menorah like that, which one of the beautiful things about the menorah is that the menorah, having it as a menorah makes it very recognizable from mitzvah. But if I would technically take a tea light, put it by my window for Hanukkah, that also would be that would also fill the mitzvah, right? Right, but you had the extra. Right, in the old days, if I would take two tea lights, why am I taking two tea lights? One is for the mitzvah menorah, and the other one is for personal use. So it's clear. Why don't I just use one tea light? Right? It seems to be more recognizable that the first tea light is for the mitzvah. It's for mitzvah purpose. So now, right. So now the question is, in our days, see, if you would be using tea lights for the mitzvah of Hanukkah, so we would say make sure that the shamash is in an elevated area, or not directly next to it. So it should be clear that this is for mitzvah, and that's I'm doing it for mitzvah purposes. But that's why the menorahs serve a great purpose today, because it becomes very recognizable it's for mitzvah. And then the question would be, technically, so why do I need a shamash today if I have these menorahs? The only reason why I would say in our days we need the shamash today, because if we have these menorahs, is only in case the lights go out. The case the lights go out, then the purpose of the shamash is not to show the rest is for mitzvah, but just in case I benefit from the light of the menorah, which I'm not allowed to benefit. So at least if it was a shamash, we could say benefit from the shamash. Therefore, the shamash in that case, so we have two ideas of a shamash, we're saying, everybody, right? The shamash serves two purposes. Number one, by having the shamash, it shows you that the rest is for mitzvah. By having this extra one, it's showing you that the others are for the purpose of mitzvah. And number two is just in case I use light, I use the menorah light, we could say, if I have the shamash, I could say it's the shamash that I use. Is that clear? Now, what about v'i adam chashuv? If you are a very distinguished person, so a very distinguished person does not use the light of personal use.
Do you want some fruit?
Doesn't seem to be so. So unique, such a distinguished person doesn't use a medura, doesn't have a torch. He's sarich ner acheret. Even there is a torch, but that's not sufficient. Because if you're Adam Chashuv, you're a distinguished person, right? You don't use a torch for personal use. What do you use? Use a regular candle. If you want to mute someone, you use a regular candle, and therefore you wouldn't use if you light a candle, people might think if you're an Adam Chashuv, that candle is serving for using that candle for personal use. So how do we know that you're not using the candle for personal use? We know you're not using the candle for personal use by having an extra candle. By having the extra candle, that shows us that this candle that you're using is not for personal use. Is that clear, everybody? Okay. Now the Gemara asks, so to speak, the $1 million question, as they say in America. My Hanukkah. Now, what's the Gemara's question? What is Hanukkah? We don't know what Hanukkah is? So Rashi says, what was the miracle that caused them to celebrate and designate this holiday of Hanukkah? There were many miracles, right? Just like today, there's many miracles happening. There's miracles all the time. But what was the unique miracle of Hanukkah that they designated the holiday of Hanukkah? The Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, on the 25th day of Kislev, there's 8 days of Hanukkah. There's no eulogies during the time period, during the 8 days of Hanukkah. Eulogies are forbidden, and you're not allowed to fast during the 8 days of Hanukkah. And then the Gemara says, when the Greeks entered the Beit HaMikdash, they contaminated all the oils, and we'll continue tomorrow. So we have a beautiful davening now. Have a great day, everybody. Take care, Sam. All the best, everybody. Take care, Simon. Take care, Ronnie. Take care, Asaf. All the best, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Have a
Tomorrow,
wonderful day.
maybe.
Rabbi.
Rabbi.
So I'm curious what the halacha was like 100 years ago when the exact same, architecture was there. Like, what were they doing?
Right. So the question is, see, in Israel today, they light right outside, I think their door. I think in Israel, we have to see how they follow.
They don't have those
Don't have those type
courtyard
of
style
plans.
buildings.
Right, they open up into the public property, that's what you're saying.
Like the kind where like there's a building in Manhattan that's there's a building in Manhattan where it's like you can drive in and then there's a circle inside.
And that's the courtyard.
I've never seen those in Israel, but in Baghdad, that's like every building.
Uh-huh. So the question is, once there was a time of sakana, danger, they moved it in the house. The question is, did they?
Oh, the danger went away.
When the danger went away, did they go back outside or not? Here in America, we never went back outside officially,
Yeah.
even though the danger is here. So, a lot of these countries are very scared to do things.
Yeah.
Or they might have just kept it. I don't trust them.